Peace, everybody. Dr. Ali is in the building, ready to have our discussion for tonight. So I'm just going to allow folk to fill in so we can get this education on. And move forward with our discussion. Tonight, we want to discuss some of the differences and similarities we have in this Aboriginal and Afrocentric paradigm. This has become a very large discussion. It is very important to continue to have this discussion. I think that if we do it in the right way, we can come out with some very good things. I know as a progenitor of this discussion from the Aboriginal side that we have great things to offer people who are of the Pan-African persuasion in the field of economics, in the field of socio-political strategy, some things that they have never tried or don't even consider on an international level to help our people with the real-time situations that we are having. We don't want these conversations to dwindle down to pettiness. We want the conversations to be functional, right? And so in order to do that, we have to present the information in a way that is effective. There are lots of people who are chiming in on this conversation. Not all good. Some very oppositional. I would request that we think about the true nature of what we are discussing. And in doing so, we will really just reflect on one thing. We all experienced, right, through our ancestry, something horrible. And in experiencing that horrible, those sets of horrible events that created mass genocide of people, displaced people, took people's identity, it has created a lot of problems for us. And in attempting to build ourselves back up, the pain and the anger and the conditions that have manifested as a result of the harm that has been done to us can place us in a set of feelings, emotions, psychologies that make us adverse to one another. We should not be adverse because we have a difference of opinion. That makes no sense. And there are people who are put here to keep us adverse. I don't want the younger people who study the knowledge in the Aboriginal paradigm to fall victim to that. That is what we call counterintelligence programming. And counterintelligence programming was something that was used by official governmental departments to divide, separate, confuse, create false communications, to use agents amongst our people to destroy our progress. And that's just not cool. We don't want to deal with that. See people coming in now. That's good. All right. All right. See people coming in. I'm just waiting on the folk to come in. All right. What are the folks saying? Anybody on? I can't even see the links, so I don't know. All right. Yeah, that's interesting. I see somebody say, Ali, I have a question. Always hear Sa say African blood this, African blood that, but he never says what's African blood. What blood type is African blood, or what is African blood? African blood is nothing. There's no such thing. And I'm not being smart. There's no such thing as African blood. All right. It just doesn't exist. If you want to understand blood in the highest level, get the book Indigenous Food Science and go to that first chapter. And we break down hematology like you have never seen it. Yeah, there is no African blood. There is no African genetics. There is no African nationality. There is no monolithic African tribe. This is something that we have to continue to talk about. All right, we got to continue to talk about it. All right, so let's start this off right. It is my premise that we meaning Aboriginals and Afrocentrics, have some things in common that we agree with for our people, and have some things that are major things that we are divided on. The things that I think that we have in common are that we agree on a need for a specific type of unity amongst our people so that we can thrive. We agree on the fact that family, well, I can't even say that. Take that back. We might not agree on that because y'all don't have a value system. All right, so let me back up a little bit. You need a value system in order to have unity. You need a value system. If you do not have a value system, you cannot have unity. My proposal to the Aboriginal community is twofold. To use our provisional constitution in ARNA, and to use the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, which we have and use a version of that with the Indigenous Political Authority. That gives us a value system, a socio-political value system, and in ARNA, a cultural value system. You are not going to move without those things. Because when you start dealing with your freedom, you have it on 4 basic levels. You have your own individual freedom as an entity. And it's not political sovereignty that you can accomplish as an individual, but you have the right to have your own mental freedom. That's important because that is what gives you the ability to not allow anyone to enslave you. No teacher, no master teachers, no ideology, none of that. You become a thinker. But in order to do that, you have to have cultural freedom. Cultural freedom is when you know your ancestry, and that ancestry has developed a system of education in order for you to be free. So for people who went through genocide and had their identity taken, where is their cultural freedom? They have to reconstruct it. So that's what we've been working on, right? Reconstructing our cultural freedom. And we're having problems with that because now we're dealing with how do we reconstruct history properly And most of the rare books and materials have been in the hands of other peoples longer than they have been in our hands. So we are borrowing reconstructed histories. I have an answer to that, and I started this in my last video, but I'm going to jump through this, all right? Next, we have our economic freedom. And economics here means the proper utility of resources, peoples, things in your environment, etc. You need your own economic freedom. You cannot have your economic freedom without the last form of freedom, which is your nationality and body politic. With those four, you can accomplish a lot. And they actually work in reverse order. And they all tied together. They're all tied together. And the problem that we're having is not knowing how they're tied. So let's just jump straight into this. Listen, Pan-Africans, you have to study. You are not studying. Let me show you what types of information you need to study. The people who enslaved your ancestors know who you are. They are not laughing at Ali when he comes and says, "We've been here." They're not laughing, all right? I'm going to show you how they're not laughing. All right, give me a moment. I'm going to show you. They're not laughing at us. They know very well what we're talking about. So let's start off here. If you are saying that our bloodline was not here, you're going to have to explain everything that I'm about to say with logic and reason, and you cannot without showing, or you cannot without agreeing that our lineage of people were here. Now, inside of the African American population, the problem is we have a varying lineage. We're not one lineage of people. And so that also says that if someone is not teaching us the science of mating, then we have a major problem. If someone is not teaching us the science of mating, we have a major problem. And that tells us not only what happened in the past, it tells us what needs to happen in the future in order to preserve our lineage or improve our lineage. I learned a lot of this from studying plants. You can improve the lineages of plants that have had their lineages weakened by environmental circumstances. And those lineages could be old lineages that have been exposed to something in the environment or people doing things in their environment that injure those plants. And so now you have to go back to those plants, study what is their indigenous environment, where do they thrive, how do they thrive, and then group them together, right, in domestication so that you can put them back into circulation so they can be strong again, all right? That is a whole science. There's the science of mating plants. And the science of mating amongst people is very, 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 very similar. It's very, very, very similar. And if you want to accomplish that, if you want to make progress with that, then in order for you to make progress with that, you must know the science. If you do not know the science, then you will not know how to accomplish that and how to do it successfully. All right? So what I'm saying is take a look at what I'm about to show you, and then we can make progress on these points of division, because the points of division are points of your ignorance. It has nothing to do with anything but your ignorance. All right, so let's just check this out. Let's check this out. Let's look at it. So you won't argue with me. The first thing I'm going to is the Lewis and Clark expedition. There's two aspects to this that are important. that are important. Oh, I thought you needed me. All right, so there are two aspects to this that are important. The first one is I'm going to read directly from a primary source. I'm going to read directly from a primary source. Let's see, what am I using? Okay, here it is. All right, this is, all right, if you know about the Lewis and Clark expedition, this was an expedition post the sale of Louisiana to the United States government by Napoleon after he got his ass kicked in Haiti. All right. After that, he sold to the United States the barracks of the city of New Orleans. But what we call Louisiana today was about 14 states, included the central part of the area of the continental United States of America. All right. And so that geography needs to be understood because there are two things that are here. The first one is who was in that area, which is answered in another letter. In this letter, we look at what were Lewis and Clark doing in that area? They were collecting plant samples and doing anthropological studies on the people who were in the area. And in doing so, they made a distinction between the Eurasians, who they were referring to as red men, the white men who were a part of the colonies that had become republics, and lastly, other groups of people who were not white men or red men. All right? For the sake of the term that we use today, these are black people, specifically the large populations of Choctaw that were in this area. I learned about this primary source from Empress Verdiasi as the head of the Washita. She was using the Lewis and Clark expedition to prove when they went on their anthropological and military expedition, who did they see? But a unique thing happened in this report on page 2. So we see the source, Meriwether Lewis's report to Thomas Jefferson, April 7th, 1805. I want you to read page 2. Because page 2 says something very interesting. Here it goes. All right. So Lewis is just talking about what they're doing. All right. And then he goes on to say, by reference to, I'm going to show you the actual letter, the muster rolls forwarded to the War Department, you will see the state of the party. In addition to which, we have 2 interpreters. 2 what? Interpreters. 1 Negro man, servant to Captain Clark, and 1 Indian woman, wife to one of the interpreters, and a Mandan man who we take with a view to restore the peace between the Snake Indians. All right. So ask yourself a question. Here we have the fat word interpreter. What is a Negro doing who is a servant of Captain Clark going on the expedition labeled by, in this first-hand account of Clark and Lewis and Clark, as one of the interpreters with an Indian woman? Who and what was he interpreting? And what language were the people speaking? All right. And so what we need to understand, really simply, let me go to the actual letter so you won't say, oh, well, he's not showing the actual letter. Let's make this bigger. I don't know if we can. Let's see. Can we make that bigger? All right. All right. So this is the actual letter, to which we have two interpreters, interpreters. One Negro man servant to Captain Clark, one Indian woman. And so what I'm saying to you, I'm not even going to go into all of this because this is one of our canons. For those of you who are engaged in Aboriginal studies in the United States of America, and you have the perspective that our ancestors were already here, that they weren't brought over here as a result of the transatlantic slave trade, you need to go through all of the letters that Thomas Jefferson, Clark, Lewis wrote to each other in respect to that particular expedition, because it unloads completely a full Aboriginal clip to show what was happening on the land. All right. That's super, 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 super important. All right. That's super, super, super important. All right. Next, I have been told or constantly, critiqued for saying that there were slaves taken from here back to Spain, back to Portugal, back to England, back to Africa. All right. And so one of the things that I want to do is go ahead and use firsthand resources again. This firsthand resource is one of the earliest resources, and it shows, well, y'all use two letters. It shows two things. All right. It shows, yes, there were Aboriginals being taken from here by people back to Spain. And it wasn't 5, it wasn't 10, it wasn't 20, it wasn't 30, it was thousands. All right. And those thousands are in records. We are not making up anything. This is exactly what it was. This is a letter from Michel da Cuneo, an Italian adventurer and friend of Christopher Columbus. Cuneo accompanied Columbus on his second voyage across the Atlantic in 1493. The following is part of a letter he wrote after he returned to Italy in 1495. All right. So he talks about, them being on the island and them circling Jamaica and what's now Haiti and Dominican Republic, Hispaniola, right? Talks about how many men they had. He talked about them being hungry and not having food. They had to wait. But look at what he says right here. When our caravels were ready to depart for Spain, aboard which I intended to return home, we gathered at our settlement 1,600 Indians, male and female. We loaded 650 of the best, both men and women, aboard those caravels on the 17th of February, 1495. All right. And so he just keeps on going and talking about leaving children and all of what they're doing. But my point to you is that this is first-hand research. I did not read from a book. I read directly from the letter. This is one trip where they're capturing thousands. And this is one of the early ones. The Spanish conquistadors have not even started coming at this particular point yet to continue that trade. All right. So we've been telling you this. We use the Jesuit letters. We use the Columbus letters. We go to Lewis and Clark. Each time we do that, guess what? Guess what's said about us afterwards? Guess what's said about us afterwards? What's said about us is you are not using primary sources. You are not using primary sources. And my response to that is, do you know what a primary source is? All right? Do you know what a primary source is? I don't think that you do know what a primary source is. All right? And a primary source is the original document. All right? That's used in order to communicate something in history. It's the actual document, in the sense that it is either a reproduction of that document and has the exact same language, or it's the actual first document that's not a copy. All right? All right? All right. And so that point needs to, I'm going to deal with each small point, because we have been accused of not using primary records to show a slave trade that started in reverse. In my last lecture, I covered that from my material, and now I'm going further to prove the point. If you disagree with me, then what you're saying is that letter is fake. All right? Oh, man. All right. All right. So we got that down. We don't have to keep going over that. Right? Let's go on to our next issue, which I think is really, really, really important. Open this up. Yeah, we are lost. Now, I'm not saying that the word Indians is an accurate term to be used. And I'm going to prove it to you that that term is not an accurate term. All right? I'm going to use the law, because we said we're going to talk about socio-political and lawful and legal science in here. We're going to bring some of our jurist information here to help you out. I'm going to show you why I don't use the term Indian. All right? It's pretty simple. I'm going to show you why I don't use the term Indian, and give you a legal, because what's happening here is you can decide to dismiss what I say because you are steeped in ignorance in law, international law, human rights law, etc. All right? So let me give you the definition of this so you can stop using certain terminologies that don't apply to us. All right. And I'm going to give you a legal conversation so that you can move yourself away with the sources, so you can move yourself away from making these errors. All right. So, and this is for anybody who's using the term Indian, or anybody who is saying from a Pan-African standpoint that we are saying we're Indians. All right. Check this out. This is from our jurist textbook. This is our textbook for our law class. All right. And this is Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, page 912. Indians. What is the definition? The Aboriginal inhabitants of North America. And this is the case law, Frazee versus Spokane County, 29, Washington. This is Washington State, 278. All right, you got it. The next is a body of law that is really important for legal studies and lawful studies, and that is Corpus Juris Secundum. All right, This is volume 42 of Corpus Juris Secundum. All right. And it says Indians. It is said, quote, Indians is what? The name given by the European discoverers of America to its what? Aboriginal inhabitants. When used in a statute without any other limitation, the term has been said to include members of the Aboriginal race, whether now sustaining tribal relations or otherwise. That is important because none of us are required to be under the Bureau of Indian Affairs in order to operate within our capacity as Aboriginals. We don't have to sustain tribal relations with the Bureau of Indian Affairs to be who we are. That's the point. Now, my next contention, well, I'll leave that. Let's keep going. Let me show you how we get entrapped. All right. Same law dictionary, Black's Law Dictionary. Fiction of law. All right. I need you to pay attention really, really closely. All right. Yeah, I'm going to make sure that I do a Q&A. All right. So check it out. Fiction of law. Something known to be false is assumed to be true. Something known to be false is assumed to be true. All right. What is known? Who knows it to be false? That is the question. If somebody knows it to be false, but somebody is assuming something to be true, it stands as a fiction of law. All right. So I'll give you an example. African Americans think that they are citizens of the United States of America. That's what they believe. All right. In the Constitution, there is written in the original 7 articles a term called natural born citizens. African Americans are not natural born citizens of the United States of America. They are second class amended United States citizens and residents. What does that mean? That means that you think that you now have equality, but without a legal conversation, you don't. To explain how you gained certain privileges. All right, it's called selective incorporation. And the Supreme Court had to come and give you certain rights because you were being discriminated against because you were not natural born citizens. All right. So fictitious means founded on a fiction, having the character of a fiction, pretended, counterfeit, feigned, imaginary, not real, false, not genuine, non-existent. So let me ask you a question. And this is not a shot on anyone's religion, but I want you to pay attention to words. You see this word? Fiction. Like a novel. What if I put a cruci in front of it? Crucifixion. Like the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. All right? What is that telling you? That's telling you that you are under Dumb's Diversa. All right? And we covered this a little bit last week. The doctrine of discovery said that they were going to take you out of your indigenous faiths and put you under perpetual servitude and force you into Christianity. This is before it happened. All right? And so we need to understand those four things that I just mentioned. Culture. The problem with our people is they have no value system or culture. And so you could claim Indian, you could claim Aboriginal, you can claim Pan-African, and you have no culture. All right? So that is something that you need to understand. All right? So let's come off of that. I think y'all got that point, right? I don't got to belabor that point. If you don't understand the point, let me make it a little bit further. Here we go. This is 1868. This is over 70 years after the Constitution is already, all right, already here. What did it say? That the naturalization laws are hereby extended to aliens of African nativity and to persons of African descent. That's July 14th, 1870. The country had already been operating. And so what you need to understand is this. What I'm trying to explain to you is this. I'm going to really help you understand these 4 points I made about mental freedom, cultural freedom, economic freedom, and nationality and political freedom. You need to understand this. If white males were the only citizens, their wives were considered their property, and they had over almost 100-year head start on you to run in a race, and now we look at them and they own almost everything as far as wealth is concerned, and still have you in a position of bondage to their wealth. That means the country was built for white men. Period. Now, what they did is something real slick. They committed genocide on you to make you think you're something that you're not. And they are really, really shrewd. And by doing so, if you don't start your own body politic, like they did, for your own thriving and self-preservation, like they did, you are going to stay behind forever. Period. You are going to stay behind forever. And so that is the issue. An artificial citizen, second-class citizen, a beggar can never compete. And you are in competition because there is a war, both covert and overt, that is being carried out against you. All right? And so what I'm saying to you is we're talking about the Aboriginal paradigm, not just to argue back and forth with Afrocentrics on whether we are here or not. That's not even an argument. You can't have that argument. You cannot have that argument. It's impossible. We'll blow you out of the water with that one. But the argument that we are having is the socio-political and economic future of our people. All right? That is important. And so if we are not going to man up and understand what has happened to us, all right, then we will have a perpetual problem. So now, let me do this. because this is important. Let me end this issue that we have developed where we think everybody is for us, right? That's what we think. We think everybody is for us. Oh man, I don't want that to happen. Let's see if this is working. Oh yeah, it is. All right, dope. All right, so I want to share something with you. This is from my protocol manual, but we can share it. It doesn't matter where it was. All right. I'm going to show you what culture looks like without your can we make this larger? All right, yeah, we can. All right. I'm going to show you what Aboriginal culture looks like, right? Because a lot of the things that we are divided on is because we don't have a scientific basis for uniting. So you got the Aboriginals, the ideology, all right, arguing. The Kemetic arguing with the Hebrews arguing with the Moors arguing with the Muslims arguing with the Christians, blah, 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 blah. And what we need is clarity on what type of culture can we unite on. All right? And I'm going to show you right now. All right? I'm going to go to our protocol manual. This is our protocol manual in ARNA. I'm going to show you what unity looks like when you don't have to have a book. The problem is everybody arguing over their book or their system inside of their book, right? Everybody's arguing over it. Oh, the Bible. Oh, the Quran. Oh, the Pert Imheru was first. Oh, you know, just going on and on and on and on and on and on. Look, I need you to understand two things. Before there were books, there was nature. And if you knew how to read nature, you knew how to be successful. You knew what your culture was by a mandate from that which is permanent and absolute, as opposed to that which is democratic and opinion-based. The problem with democracy is it's all based on philosophy and opinion. So the most intricate things for the survival of a people, culturally, socially, economically, can be erased by a bunch of dumb citizens who are voting and a bunch of shrewd representatives who fool the people. In Aboriginal systems, nature rules, and nature is a product of its designer. So there is no atheism, which we have a high amount of Afrocentric atheism permeating. And the problem with that is it divorces you from your power. And your power is in connection to your source and the formulas of your source that are producing for you everything that you see that is here, that is permanent in character, nature, environment. And so this table, which I'm going to explain really, really easily, shows you, one, who is Aboriginal, two, what is their real ancestry, three, how they should self-organize themselves into social systems, four, what would be a breach of those social systems and environment, five, how to set up their body politic in conformity with nature. How to understand the psychology of the new beings being born from the wombs of the mothers every 9 months and their place in the society so that they can be successful. How to plan your births. All of those things. So let's take a look at this. This is the first book. This is before the Bible. This is before the Quran. This is before the Pert Imheru from Egypt. This is before all of these other books. These books are only extractions to teach you principles of nature that are good for human beings so that they can be successful. But if you knew how to read a simple table, and there's a lot on this table, but I usually only use 4 elements and 4 conditions, and I can teach any subject that has ever been taught in time. Psychology, chemistry, biochemistry, physics, government. What do you want to learn? We can teach health, agriculture, nutrition, so-called astrology. All right, divination, religion, cosmology, military, economics. I can teach any subject from this one table. And this table was used in Aboriginal America as an educational platform. All right. And so let's start. Really simple. These are things in our environment: sunlight, atmosphere, water, and fruits. What is the basis of all these? We are a solar-based people. And the very molecular structures that we call carbon peptides, all right, carboxylic acids, help build up our bodies into something called phototropic melanin. Those carbon peptides, carbon structures, atomic and molecular, end up making the very thing that holds our consciousness, which we call DNA and RNA, or DNA and ONA. So the sun is vital to us. So any evolutionary theory saying that we are a mutant of a non-solar, pale, hairy people cannot fit into the table of nature. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. We are an anaerobic people. We breathe oxygen in order to use that particular oxygen in our cells, in what we call cellular respiration. Really simple. All right. For those who are homolactic fermenters and anaerobic in nature, high amounts of oxygen are not good for them because oxygen is combustible. And the evidence of oxygen's combustion is shown in our bodies. Melanin is an oxygen-carrying substance. Solar-based melanin, because there's another type of chemosynthetic melanin that is synthetic. How we know that your melanin is real, right, is by your hair. The copper that is there with the carbon produces not just energy or any type of energy, the oldest form of energy in the universe, which we know of as electricity. There are many different forms of energy, but the most important one is electricity or electromagnetism. That's what causes that hair to coil. This is why they cannot tell you, look, I'm going into the science of who is Aboriginal, not guessing, all right? And I'm going into the culture that is the bedrock of it, all right? How you know who is Aboriginal, right? To this orb. And this is how you debunk these people who are here who depend so heavily on European science. check this out. I want one of them to tell me what gene code or genetic code or chromatin or DNA is used to produce kinky hair. Tell me which one. They don't know. And that's because it's not produced by a gene. I'm going to say that again. It is not produced by a gene. All right? No. See? What our people need to understand is they have to stop guessing. All right? There are people, look, there are people in India with skin that's almost as dark as space. But the compounds that make that particular thing up are not what I'm talking about. That's how deep this goes. So you have to know based on experimentation and science. So let me go further and go back to this point. All right. I did the anaerobic. Now we are dealing with water. I use this in the presentation to tell you why Becky can run in the cold. All right? Because their body has more of a liquid substance that is ammonia-based as opposed to it being water-based. All right? That's why she can run in the cold. She's cool with that. If you put ammonia in the freezer, what happens to it? It doesn't freeze because it's not commensurate with its environment. H2O is. And lastly, we have fruits. The reason why fruits are important is because they are the basis of cellular energy. It is the glucose molecule that is used in the citric acid cycle and cellular respiration cycle. It is the only source of energy for the body. Let me say that again. Carbohydrates are the only source of energy for the body besides breathing, water, and sunlight. What you get, minerals do not give you energy. They're structural, they're for structural phenomena. And so what I'm telling you is, if they're anti-solar, anaerobic, ammonia-based, and nitrogen-based, and not carbon-based, they don't fit on this table. Ik nab nal is the terminology used, which means black water place, for the manifestation of our ancestral existence. When we look at ancestors in the Aboriginal aspect, fire, air, water, and earth are our ancestors. And if we want to use technical terms, we can. Hydrogen ions, oxygen, H2O, and carbon, and other minerals. These ancest means family, and from a family. This is the family that we are from. This is nature. These elements are nature, and their designer, this intelligence, coordinates them based on a system of laws to animate life. Hydrogen ions, oxygen, H2O, and carbon are the basis of our DNA. Nitrogen, ammonia, all right? Nitrogen gases are the basis of theirs. Aboriginal people can be defined scientifically through biochemistry and these other forms. These are the indigenous names for these particular elements. Ka'ak is fire. Eek, all right, is oxygen, all right. Kab, all right, is earth, all right. And Ha is water. I didn't put those there. And so what am I saying to you? I'm saying that if your child is born in one of these polarities, let's say he's a Leo, but it's really fifth polarity, we know his temperament. His temperament is that he's energetic, but he likes to be isolated. His mind is always on fire. And so now we can say, oh, we can organize classrooms and educational models based on the temperaments of the children. We can tell what careers they will be more prone to be in based on tracking the planetary magnetic fields that were in a birth chart when they were born. All of this is a part of what we need, all right, to be dealing with. Nature and organization of nature based on science. So we won't have a question about whether we should be transgender or not as Aboriginals, because we know there's a perpetual relationship between the masculine and the feminine. The feminine elements being water and earth, the masculine being air and oxygen. But these two come together to make life. So family will always be the basis based on reality, not be based on because my prophet said it, only because somebody said it. No, it'll be the basis because it is the basis of creation. We need a class on nature's culture. Because by getting that particular class on nature's culture, then we can determine what our culture really is without all these isms and dogmatisms. That is one thing that is hampering us. By the time we finish that, we can say, my child was born on such and such date. I planned the child as a man or a woman, or a male or a female. And I can tell you what this child is going to be when the child grows up. I cultivated the child in the womb to become a master. And then we move on to that particular point. So that's all I wanted to touch on the cultural tip. We could go on and on and on about that, but our issue is the isms. And how we break those isms is science and true spirituality that we can derive true answers from. All right, so let me shut that down and go to my next set of points. All right. Looks like I turned off. All right. All right. So I'm going, don't worry, I'm going to the masonry because I have to deal with this issue because now I'm going to get cursed out, but it's all right. I have to do something that might disturb some people, but that's okay. That is okay with me. All right. That is okay with me. As a matter of fact, I think I would. Do I want to do that? All right. So I will do it. I will do it. Many of the deities, all right, that we have in the pantheon, in the American pantheon, as I proved to you, pyramid building was developed here and it spread east. I proved that to you. All right. I want to show you another photo of a deity. And it comes from Columbus's journals, where he, I don't know if I can find this. Let's see. Where Columbus was talking about how some of the people told him that there were blacks who brought spears from the South. I don't even have that quote right now, but I'll see if I can find it before we get off. I'm opening up like a million files right now, so give me a minute. All right, this one I want to talk about is Echua. Is he on here? Maybe not. Let's see if I can open him up. All right. And this is from the Madrid Codex. There's several depictions of Echua. And so in Columbus's journals, they say, oh yeah, these medals that we have here, we got them from some black people from the South, right? So this is Echua. Echua. Ek is the same as ik that I just showed. And ik covers the element air. I want you to pay really close attention to this, because what I'm showing you is where in the East they developed these mythologies around ancestral archetypes. All right. So this archetype, all right, is called Ik. All right, or Echua. Echua was a she deity of merchant, trade, commerce, right? And traveling through the sea. Those pointed spears that Columbus was talking about are right here in an actual codex. Look at his phenotype, son. Beard. All right, so you got it. You know who this is. This is the original man. But these gold-tipped spears, all right, we can trace where these come from. But the point is that Ik means air. He is the deity of travels and trade. Now, it is important for you to understand that the art, the aesthetic art of the time, was not based on hocus pocus things. The artist had to see someone who looked like this in order to depict him. I'm going to say it again. The artist had to see someone who looked like this to depict this character. You cannot get this phenotype, right? You cannot get this phenotype, all right, without seeing the person. You can't. It's important for you to understand that. All right? And so, when you look at Echua, Ik means air. All right, so let me jump right to it. In the Punic pantheon, this deity is Mercury. Mercury is the lord of the air. Mercury became the lord of the air sign, Gemini. All right, and an earth sign, Virgo. Mercury was the lord of travel and trade in the Punic civilizations. This eventually spread into the Greek, Minoan, and other civilizations. This deity in Africa, which the African version of this deity came afterwards, is called Exu. All right? All right? Exu. Exu is a deity in the Ifa tradition. Exu is the messenger of Olodumare. Exu protects one in travels. Or there are many different versions of Elegua, but this Exu is one of them. The etymology of the word comes from America. All right? That's super, 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 super important. All right? And so as we go through these, we need to understand the chronology of when something happens. And then we need to understand the phenotype, which leads to genotype, and then the cultural conclusions that we can come to when we have the linguistics, etc., is how did this deity affect other pantheons? All right. All right. So let's go to our next figure because I want to show something that's important. Let's see if I can come off of that. All right. So, like I said, I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody, but this will help you if you're interested. You know, people want to ignore it just because. They can do that. Go right ahead. The next issue is a cultural issue, right? And I have to bring it up. All right. And when I brought it up last time, Jabari got mad at me and said I was disrespecting Dr. John Henry Clarke. I was not disrespecting Dr. John Henry Clarke. All right. I was not disrespecting Dr. John Henry Clarke. But let me ask you a question. John Henry Clarke was a great historian according to Afrocentrics and Pan-Africans. And he's considered a pioneer. For a man who studied Africa that much and is supposed to love Africa that much, I have a question. This is just a legitimate question. He was born John Henry Clarke. He changed his name to John Henrik Clarke. And when you investigate why he changed his name to John Henrik Clarke, you come up with this. Let me show you. This is who he named himself after. He didn't name himself John Mansa Musa Clarke. He didn't name himself John Kenyatta Clarke, John Sunny Ali Clarke, John Tutankhamun Clarke. He didn't do that. He named himself John Henrik Clarke. And when we gather the information of where he got that from, it's going to bother us a little bit. It's going to bother us a little bit, but that's okay. It's all right if we're a little bothered. Check this out. Who is this man right here? This is the white man, Henrik Ibsen, who John Henry Clarke named himself after. For a person who is so adamant about African culture and African life, why would you name yourself after a European with all of these African greats that you can name yourself after? Why would you do that? That is the question. Why would you do that? Why was it important to have yourself named after a European? Why? This is not a slight, this is a question. This is a cultural question. All right? This is a cultural question. It is the same question that I asked Jabari when I saw what I suppose was a boule technique or boule tactic, I should say, that I presume that he carried out. When I was just about to nab the issue of Franz Boas being the progenitor of Africana studies in its first phase, 4 phases of which Jabari's own professor laid out, he decided to interrupt me so I could not expose that information. And I thought to myself, is this gatekeeping, which is a tactic of the Boule. They gatekeep for very influential, wealthy, etc. Europeans, right? So that we will not detect who they are, what they're up to, and how they are directly or indirectly influencing us. The Boule members do that, and I'm going to prove that before I get off of this line. This is where we divide at. I'm not going to name myself after a European. All right, just not going to happen. And I'm going to give you the source so you won't say that I made that up. All right, I'm going to give you the source. Don't worry. I'm going to give you the source. Don't worry. Dr. Clark named himself after this European, all right? Heinrich Johann Ibsen, all right? And Johann was a playwright. He was, he directed theater, all right? And he was one of the founders of modernism in like theatrics and in theater. Again, he was Norwegian. He was a writer. And so, let me give you the source. All right. Barbara E. Adams wrote the book, John Henrik Clarke, Master Teacher. It was published by A&B Publishers. And in it is an interview where that information was collected on why his name went from John Henry Clarke to John Henrik Clarke. All right. He was born John Henry, Henry. All right. I think he was born in Alabama. All right. And so that's an Alabama name. Henrik is not an Alabama name. It is an Eastern European name. And that's what he decided. All right. All right. So you're not going to debunk that. So that sets a precedent for me to make this statement. Because you're not getting away. I asked, now this is significant. This is not conspiracy theory talk. You know, although that's what happened to me last time. Oh, he's talking this conspiracy theory stuff. I'm telling the Aboriginals that the reason why you don't know you're Aboriginal is because of a conspiracy. It is my position that it's a conspiracy to hide it. I mentioned Lewis and Clark at the beginning for a reason. Let me show you why. Let me show you why I mentioned that. Give me a moment. I'm going to get to it. All right. This is why I mentioned Lewis and Clark. All right. Take a look. This is Poverty Point, Louisiana. This is not Egypt. This is America. Right here. This was Louisiana during the time when Lewis and Clark went into the area. This was the president. When he came into Louisiana and they brought the military, they saw all of these mounds. They had military forts from the French in this area right here. They went on an expedition throughout all of this area to see who was here. And they used Negro interpreters. What language does a Negro speak? Ebonics? Were they using him to interpret Ebonics amongst Aboriginals? No. All right. So they sing the song from the halls of Montezuma. Here's the halls of Montezuma right here, to the shores of Tripoli. And this is a song sang by the United States military, and it's the oldest military song. And what is it celebrating? It's celebrating the conquering of Aboriginals. And so look at what Thomas Jefferson had to say. Check this out. Look at what he had to say. During his term, or this is said about him, during his term as president of the American Philosophical Society, Thomas Jefferson disclosed that earlier in his life, he assumed his burdens of public life. He had personally excavated a what? An ancient Indian mound in Virginia. Communications with United States consular representative in Tripoli and Algiers, in consequence against the war against the pirates of the Barbary Coast, drew to Jefferson's attention the possibility that some linguistic relationship might exist between the North African tongues and those of North America. Stop. When you do your DNA studies amongst certain older populations and bones and other things found amongst Cherokee and Choctaw, you find a North African genetic element. And I'm going to talk about what that is. He encountered the collection of vocabularies by the consuls of North Africa and also by American explorers such as Lewis and Clark, who were using Negro interpreters. See, this, let me break something down to you. It's uncomfortable to talk about histories that you've never heard before. It's uncomfortable to talk about history that you've never heard before, because now you have these dents in your brain, right? And the brain wants the information that you receive to be accurate, because to change it is uncomfortable. All right? It's uncomfortable to change it. All right? It's uncomfortable. All right? So look at what Thomas Jefferson is saying. He said, wait a minute, there's some connection between these languages. Then he had Lewis and Clark with a Negro doing interpretation. They were encountering who? So-called American Indian tribes not previously known. So what's the connection between these languages? I use Shua, and am proposing that certain deities pass from America to Africa. Certain mythos, certain traditions. I already proved in the last lecture the pyramid building started here and moved east into what we know of as Kemet. Now what I'm going to show you is linguistically, right? The natives have no languages. Oh, yes, they do. There is a book by Jules Couvet called The Berbers in America. And basically, he goes over the names of almost 50 Berber tribes. And what he finds out is they match Aboriginal American tribes. So the question is, which came first? I'm saying the American ones came first. And I'm going to give you a different migration pattern so you can understand how what got where. I used the pyramids last week. Go back and look at that lecture, please. But I'm also going to give you the possibility that there's some people who don't want us to know this information. So what I'm going to do is do both of these particular things. First, I'm going to show, hopefully I can show this without having to go too deep, because this is in a book that I have called The Aboriginal, the More, the African. And you can buy that book and get that information. But what I want to share is that when I showed the pyramid building moving from the Americas in Mexico to Africa and to Egypt, with that activity comes a lot of other things, linguistic and traces of who peopled Egypt. Afrocentrics hum this lie forevermore that the Nubians found from the south founded Egypt. That is a lie. Egypt was founded by Westerners coming from the northwest part of Africa. Why is that important? Because ultimately, what you're going to find out is that these populations migrated from here to do so. That is what you're going to find out. That is a completely different migration pattern, and we can time it. And so I'm going to help myself with doing that. And then I'm going to come back to this John Henry Clark issue and this Boule issue. So let me do that. Now, when it comes to these migration patterns, I already killed it with the DNA stuff. I actually will go back over that. I don't have a problem going back over that. Because I'm not going to let nobody take away from what we're about to prove here. What is the point that we're trying to prove here? Is that the socio-political economic dynamic of a body politic formed by Aboriginals to rectify their situations is the best. In order to do so, we have to bust up a bunch of distorted reconstructions to give you better ones. All right, so let me help myself to it. I'm going to prove now. I'm going over to Africa now. I got to go to Africa because I got to prove something that you don't know about African history. And I'm going to use the proper history. Give me a moment. Thomas Jefferson did know the secret. Thomas Jefferson did know the secret. He did know. All right. Let me prove my point. All right. So look, check this out. Dr. Clyde Winters tried to show you some of this, but y'all weren't listening. So I'm going to go a little bit further. He tried to show you this, but he did it in a different direction. So I'm going to show you this to help you out with this. And then we can go right into this other set of discussions that I had, and then we can get out of here. All right. Give me 1 second so I can pull this file up. Gotta find it. All right, so check this out. Take a little while for this to open up. Give me a moment. It's a really big file. If you want this book, you can go to governmentreparations.org and get the book. It's a pretty long book. It's about 330 pages of pure fire. All right, let me go to the part that we need to be in. And this is basically a material. Hold on. All right, so I had Exua in here. And I heard somebody say something about his feet, Exua's feet. I'll get to that. Because y'all trying to pull the same thing that the Eurasian Mexicans try to pull. It ain't gonna work, bro. It ain't gonna work. It's not going to work. So let me open this file. Am I there? I do suggest you go back and look at the lecture that I did on slave trade in reverse, because that'll help you. And I went through the pyramid building and a whole bunch of other stuff that is pertinent to this discussion as a chain of discussions. But give me a moment just so I can pull these files. It's a lot of files. All right, there we go. Boom. Y'all gonna just have to completely change. All right, here we go. Which way should I go with this? Okay, I'll do it like this then. All right, so let's debunk this real quick. All right. Was Egypt founded by indigenous peoples in the western part of Africa? And I have to do this in two parts. The other part I can't do today, which shows they literally came from the Americas. But this first part will be easy. All right. So Tamari, which is the name of Egypt, is their origins in Nubia. All right. We can look at genetics. We can look at a number of things. We can look at the utterances. This is utterance 242 from the pyramid text. What does it say? The flame is extinguished. No light is found in the house of him who possesses the bed. Is this somebody talking about their parents? Now, this glyph right here, I'll explain in a minute, because this is going to blow the whole cap off. You see the she in this, right? This is going to blow the whole cap off. All right, so let me go. Let's keep going. All right, so this is Amenhotep the third. All right. Ringo year 5, and what does he say? Why is my daughter staring at me? I'm gonna make her come on here and teach this live stream. All right, so what does he say? King of Upper and Lower Egypt, all right? Neb-Ma-Re, heir of Re, son of Ra, all right? King of the gods, and Nun, Lord of the cataract, given life. He's just talking about, his titles. Then he goes on to say, one came to tell his majesty, the fallen one of vile Cush has plotted rebellion in his heart. His majesty led on to victory. He completed it in his first campaign of victory. His majesty reached them like the wing stroke of a falcon, like Menthu in his transformation. Ikeni, the boaster in the midst of the army, did not know the lion that was before him. Neb-Ma-Re was the fierce-eyed lion whose claws seized vile Cush, who trampled down all his chiefs in their valleys, they being cast down in their blood, one on top of the other. Does that sound like somebody who's talking about their origins or their parents? Now, by the time you get to the 25th dynasty, and you did get some Cushites who came to push out some foreigners, they weren't the same lineage as the older New Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and Old Kingdom dynasties. How can you prove it? It's easy. It's pretty easy to prove. All right. Other instances. All right. The Hyksos, Apophis, the Hyksos king, allied with the kings in Nubia to come against Egypt. All right. This is the source, Aspects of Egyptian Foreign Policy in the 18th Dynasty in Western Asia and Nubia by James Hoffmeyer. This was his dissertation. All right. We don't have to make anything up. This is Egyptians. These are the Nubians. Different phenotypes, different genotypes. One did not come from the other in the sense of how you're trying to say it. Nope. Bound. All right. And so when we look at the origins, let's go back so I can break it down. I have to read this whole thing to you. All right. This is Buvalis antiquus, found in Tassili in Algiers, rock carvings. This animal is now extinct, but was a type of cattle in the Sahara when it was a fertile grassland, which leads to the conclusion that the founders of Egypt, just like their records say, came from the West. Let's read it. On the origins of certain original and influential dynasties of Egypt. All right, I gotta make this bigger so you can see it. Oh, wrong one. My bad. All right. There are different types of Africans. It is the author's contention that the original name of the Egyptians, commonly called Himenu, was Mary, after the sovereign, or Neb, whom we mistakenly call Pharaoh. The term Mary, with its variants that refer to the leader, means heir, in the sense of political and religious or spiritual heir. Heir to the system of Maya, and heir to the land as sovereign for the empire. Tameri was the name of what we call Egypt. Most current Afrocentric and some Egyptologists assert that the origin of the Egyptians was from the south. I assert that only particular dynasties assert this, and those that did were few in number and late. Specifically, the 25th dynasty asserts this claim, and a part of the Middle Kingdom dynasty 12. Yet the classical Old Kingdom, some Middle Kingdom and New Kingdom founders were clearly anti-Nubian in their stele, in the sense of having an origin as they claim it in other places, not the South. Specifically, the claim of being foremost or the pure Westerners leads us to investigate the terms, because this is all throughout the pyramid text. All right, that's what they said. Kinti Amintu. Foremost of the Westerners, foremost of the Westerners. Why did they keep saying? They didn't say foremost of the Southerners. They could have easily said that. Leads us to investigate the terms and origins of the Magi militaries and the mythical leaders like Asar. Did they come from the South? No, they did not originate. We're going to show you where. That term applied to both the dead and their origins, and Asar represented a dead king and kingdoms. Simply put, what was West? The answer is complex, yet it is evident that the West was large. There were vassals in the West that termed themselves Mary too. And we can identify this group today in Africa and in the Americas. We won't do the second part. That's too long and too extensive. All right. Yes, the author is claiming that the original Mary were Merops of classical Greek texts and Moors of classical history, an ethnic group that has morphed names yet kept similar Afro-Asiatic language, culture, and genetics via the ethnic groups this applies to. Historical verification has come. The origins of the famous stance of the pharaoh smiting his enemies, prehistoric rock carvings, evidence of the semi-nomadic prehistoric peoples that are still semi-nomadic today, and the shamanistic origins of Egyptian priesthoods clearly identifies the Kinti Amintui, foremost of pure Westerners among the mythical leaders of Egypt, as was no myth. Asar was from the West, indeed a dead king from past kingdoms, mostly lost to environmental circumstances, yet his green color connects him to the grasslands of the Sahara, an ancient grassland that is presently a desert. The Tassili and Jer rock carving findings prove that the Sahara was a fertile grassland for these semi-nomadic peoples. There are many other proofs. These peoples today are Africa's largest ethnic group, called the Fula, and it was amongst the primal Fula, the oldest lineages, that we have a trace back to the Sahara populations that founded the early dynasties of Egypt, not Nubia. Yes, the author is asserting West and Central Africans founded Egypt, not southbound Africans. Linguistic diversity proves their homeland was as west as we can get in Senegal, Morocco, Mauritania, Mali. Now, when you go to the latest finds, the Ermud finds in Morocco of the oldest Homo sapiens in Africa are in West Africa. They're not in South Africa. They're in West Africa. I'm going to say that again. According to your evolutionary biologist, who you trust in, the oldest findings are from the area that I'm talking about. All right? Their Niger Cordofian language proves that they moved west. Their shamic culture and uses of livestock, some extinct as in this photo, is the most ancient and unparalleled. Their physical features amongst their clans match the old kingdom to new kingdom dynastic leaders. Phenotypes, genotypes, history, epigraphy, migrations, mythos. Literature left in first-hand resources of the pyramid text saying they're from the West. Case closed. Now, those populations are now called themselves, or are called the Amazigh. In the text, they were called the Amashi. I am not making it up. Let me show you. All right. These are the utterances where they're saying they're the foremost of the Westerners. Pyramid text, etc., etc. All right. So this term right here, which I won't translate fully, but it's a foreign term, meaning the word was not a part of the Medu Neter when it was written in the dynasty that was written. It's older. And this is after mixing populations in Egypt. But you have this Amashi surviving in the language as a foreign term, which we call Amazigh today, mistakenly. But Amashi is directly connected to further west. But I will say this to conclude, that Egyptians were not Southern Africans. They were not Nubians. That's important. They weren't. All right? There were North Africans and Northwest Africans. That's important for you to know. And I got a lot more daggers on that. So that's a deviation from my original points, but I had to make that particular point because now I want to make this point. And this point is, when John Henry Clark named himself after a European, why did he do that? And what does that signify? Let's go back. Now, Jabari said that, oh, you're Alpha. You're not a part of the Boule. I'm not saying that you are a part of the Boule. I'm not saying that we're going to belabor the conversation. I'm going to say that it's important for us to understand as a people where our opposition will come when we are in socio-political movements that affect economics, that affect the social fabric of the country. All right? Europeans are not going to do anything to try to stop the rise of Afrocentric thought because they created it. I'm going to say it again. Europeans are not going to try to stop anything that has to do with Africana studies because they created it. I'm telling the Aboriginals who know this knowledge, you are the threat. You are the socio-political threat. And I'm telling you this for your own safety. That's super, super, super important. And it's not threatening in the sense of, oh, you should have fear. No, meaning that when you're on the chessboard and you're playing chess, you need to understand you're playing chess. And so now your culture informs you of who you are dealing with. So when you deal with this, right? 4 and 4. What is this? This is the Ennead and the Ogdiad, which is a copy of the Pesejit. 4 male, 4 female, 1 creator. Why do you think they have the so-called Sphinx? What are they saying that they're patterning themselves after? Let's look at the founder. Henry Minton was the founder of Sigma Pi Phi Boule. He founded the order on May 15, 1904, in where? Philadelphia. He, a pharmacist, a dentist, and 2 physicians, Henry McKee, Minton, Dr. Algernon B. Jackson, Dr. Edward C. Howard, and Dr. Richard J. Warwick met and announced to themselves and to others that a new world was coming. What new world? In 1904? What happened after that? Federal Reserve, IRS, FBI, CIA, all the intelligence agencies, all of these Africana studies started coming. What new world was coming? On Vanity Fair magazine's July 2004 issue, page 128, founder of the Boule, Henry Minton, comments, state, and openly admits he wanted his organization to be like or patterned after the Skull and Bones, the Brotherhood of Death, founded in 1832 in New Haven, Connecticut, and it was called the City of the 9 Squares. 8, 9. 9 squares. So, what am I getting at? This is just questions that I have to ask. All right, let me go further. Who started calling us African? Was it not Masons? It was Free African Lodge 459, which was to be the focal point of a struggle for civil rights that constitutes to this day. Early members of the Prince Hall Masonic fraternity were ministers who? Jupiter Hammond, Richard Allen, and Absalom Jones. I'm circling all the way back to the conversation with Jabari. Who are these people? I showed you who they were, and I'm going to go back to show you who they were. They founded the what? The Free African Society. And the leaders of the what? Black Church Movement. Free African Lodge 459 of Prince Hall Freemasonry formed a part of the funeral procession of President George Washington. Here's your source. So they started calling us this. So look, let's go take a look at these guys then. Let's go back to them. Remember, I gotta make this. Oh man, I think my font is in white. Let's see if I can change that right here live. Because I had this on black slides. It's coming from another presentation. Let me change these back real quick. So you can read this writing. So we got Absalom Jones and Richard Allen right here. Let's put this. Oh man. Let's change this back so we can see it. Don't try to hide it. Yep, that's them. Both Richard Allen, James Fortin, this is Absalom Jones. They met with Robert Finley, right? To try to take the free blacks back to Africa. That's what these Negroes did. Negro preachers, Masons. We have to watch out for these people. In the book, Aboriginal to More to African, I go through the whole Freemasonic Constitution, and I ask you a question. See, this is how you play. This is how you play people, right? Let me show you. This is how you play people. It's like CNN. They have you thinking that they're against each other, but they're really together. All right? This is how they play. I'm going to show you just how they play. This is how they play. This is exactly how they play. All right, this is how they play. Can y'all see this? Oh, yeah, I can't see this. All right, good. On January 15th, 1817, Fortin and other black leaders called a meeting at Bethel to discuss the American Colonization Society, which is a society designed to take free people of color out of the United States. Why did they want us out of here? So they could keep the other indigenous populations not free, not knowing who they were. You had Aboriginal populations of people buying slaves to manumit them so they could know who they were and have their freedom back. All right. All right, so the black leaders, Fortin, Allen, John Glaucus, all these, they came in to say, let's get out of here. Let's go back to Africa. As Fortin wrote to Paul Cuffey on January 25th, there's not a soul that was in favor of going to Africa. Why? They knew the truth. Look at Paul Cuffey. They just mentioned Paul Cuffey. Look at him. This is Paul Cuffey right here. Look at the brother. Afro out dark, right? His father, Cuffey, was Ashanti. His mother was Native American. Look how he looked. Look at his phenotype. All right? And so he was free. He was never enslaved. But look at him. Let's take a good look at him, because y'all, look at him. It ain't no Eurasian phenotypes here. All right? His mother was Wampanoag. Let's make it bigger so you can see. Let's make it bigger. This is Paul Cuffey right here. Huh? Look at the phenotype. Look at the hair. Don't get it twisted. That's all I'm saying. Don't get it twisted. So let's go to these white people they met with. Here it is right here. Look. This is Robert Finley right here. This is who Absalom Jones, Richard Allen, and John Fortin met with secretly to try to get black people to leave the place where they were born at. And none of them agreed. So you had Negro preachers who were Masons trying to tell us we were Africans in the sense of the use of that term. And then they met secretly with this white dude to get all the free blacks to leave. Think about that. Now, this is where y'all get mad at me, right? It's all right. Y'all gonna get mad at me. Is not Ankh a Mason? Is Ankh a Mason? All the people who come at me hard about this Aboriginal stuff, is he not a Mason? He'll tell you he's a Mason. Ex-US military. He'll tell you that. He's not gonna lie about that. I'm not saying that automatically. I'm just saying that there is a pattern. I rarely see the Armor Rock Squad come up against European evolutionists, archaeologists, and speak against some of the things that they do to falsify information or etc. Was not Jabari Alpha? He said he was an Alpha. That's a Greek. Why are you Greek and you're Afrocentric? I raised the question. It is a cultural question. Why are you in a white fraternal order of Masonic brotherhoods, even if you're in the black version? Why don't you have a Kemetic priesthood? Now, I'm going to show you the double talk, right? These were the 7 white men who formed the repatriation movement. The repatriation movement was not formed by our people. It was formed by white people, and our people picked up on it. All right. This is George Washington's family. Bushrod. All right. Where is the? I'm trying to find my textbook. All right. So Monroe, you got all of them. James Monroe. All right. James Monroe. You know who this is right here. This one is going to blow your mind. This is the dude who Kaepernick was trying to come after. Francis Scott Key. They got you singing his song, Slave Owner. Slave Owner. Why is it that NFL players are going to get fined if they don't stand up for this guy? You see how this works? You see how this works? These were the people who got together, conspired to suppress your Aboriginal history. They got together to conspire. They formed the American Colonization Society to send you to a place that you had never been. It wasn't no black people meeting up. They took the names as Masons that were given to them. That's what they did. So let's go a little bit further. Was it not? How is it that you could be a Mason? Like, think about this. I'm going to show you this, and I want you to think about this. How is it that you can be a Mason and pushing Egypt, right? When it was Masons that separated Egypt from Africa. All right. Let me be clear and with detail, because I always give you the first-hand resources. So you're never going to accuse me of not being accurate. You're an Afrocentric Mason, but it was Masons who tried to separate Egypt from Africa, and you're trying to bring Egypt back into Africa. What are you doing? But you don't want to hear nothing Aboriginal. You want to hear nothing close to you. Pyramids down the street from you, you don't want to hear it. You want to go to pyramids that's damn near 8,000 miles away. But one's right down the street from you, you ain't trying to hear that. You ain't got nothing to do with that. We could bring you everything. You ain't trying to hear it. All right, so look. Let's find where they did it at. Because they certainly separated. It was Anderson's Constitution where they started separating and saying Egypt is not in Africa, basically. Masons did that. Let's show you. I'm going to show you how they did it. Then they had the nerve. See the whole. All right, let me give you the context in which I'm speaking. All right, so you can see clearly. I just showed you, right, to start off with, Lewis and Clark, right? Showed you Lewis and Clark because I wanted you to see that Negroes were used as interpreters in Indian lands. What languages could a Negro interpret? That's the first question you should ask. Why is he taking them to interpret? Then I showed you that our people, right, were being taken from the West, starting way back with Columbus in the thousands, back to Spain, Portugal, all these areas. And we can go further. We can go into Africa. And that's significant. All right? That is significant. It's super significant. All right? So we showed you that. Then we go and we show you that Egypt was peopled from the northwest by a people who we call the Fula. All right? Who we're saying these various types of Fula and Berbers are directly connected to Native American tribes linguistically. We gave you the book, Jules Cabot, The Berbers in America. It's in French, all right? You don't have a translation for that. I've never seen one. So you have to have somebody who speaks French to break that down to you. Dr. Ivan Van Sertima was the first person I saw to source that particular book. That's how I found out about it when he wrote about it, and they came before Columbus. Okay, so now connection is made, but what type of connection? By the time I get to Masonry, I'm dealing with people who are trying to suppress the Aboriginal history and the last aspect in West Africa, Aboriginal history in West Africa, of a Renaissance. And that happened under the Moorish Empire. And so when you look at Columbus's journals, when you look at the Masons, what do they attack? What did John Henry Clark attack? As profound a historian as he was, they always try to attack West African, North African, East African, even Arabian Islam. They do that. They do that hard. They whitewash the history. They do that hard. That is a Masonic tactic. That's what I'm trying to get to. Masons know that they got their whole Renaissance from indigenous African Moors, indigenous African Muslims. But in the Anderson's Constitution, which I'm about to show you, this is what they say. So I'm trying to show you the war that is played. So look, this is Anderson's Masonic Constitution. All right. As the Asiatic and African nations fell under the same calamity by the conquest of the Mohammedans, whose grand design is only to convert the world by fire and sword instead of cultivating the arts and sciences. Are you kidding me? This is in the Masonic Constitution. The Renaissance that was brought back to Africa. I showed you through the prime meridian science that it was the Moors, the Muslims who brought back the prime meridian science. This is before the Arabs came in and Arabized it. These are Aboriginals on the African continent who did that. I wrote a 437-page dissertation on this information. And so what I'm saying is, how can Masons, who are the products of Renaissance Europe, right, tell anybody that the people who created the Renaissance, who inspired the Renaissance, are not about cultivating the arts and sciences? Everybody knows the area in Spain that we're talking about was under the control of indigenous Africans for over 700 years, who cultivated arts and sciences. So what would make Masons want to suppress this? And why do Afrocentrics do the same thing that the Masons do? These are questions. How can you be Afrocentric and Greek culturally? Now we're talking about cultural phenomena. All right? You can't. That's like me saying I want to be Powhatan and Iroquois. Not going to be that way. Why? Iroquois or Mingwe are Eurasians. The Powhatan are Aboriginals of North America. If you don't know the history, you might confuse the two. I don't go to powwows and do Mingwe ceremonies. Powwow literally comes from us. It's powwow, which is the solstice and equinox celebrations. You follow me? So this is about learning. This is about education. This is about a well-rounded education. So it's like the outside of a puzzle. If you don't have the outside, you don't know how to fill in the pieces. And so what I'm telling you is, as we move forward and we do well with the Aboriginal paradigm in medicine and natural sciences and economics, your greatest detractors will be people who look like you, some of whom may be allied with the enemy, may be sleeping with the enemy. This is why if you go, well, I won't even say that. I'll just leave that as it is. My point is, check it out. Oh yeah, this is it right here. Look at what they say? Behavior in the presence of strangers, not Masons. It says, well, excuse me, diversion and distraction. Look at this now. Diversion and distraction. Pay attention to people when they debate you because they're using Masonic tactics. Whenever you see folk skillfully divert conversations from its subject, especially conversations pertaining to our liberation and education and progress as a group, you may be dealing with a skilled Mason following his Masonic constitution. The charges of a Freemason, section 4, part 4. Behavior in the presence of strangers, not Masons. You shall be cautious in your words and carriage, that the most penetrating stranger shall not be able to discover or find out what is not proper to be intimated. And sometimes you shall divert a discourse and manage it prudently for the honor of the worshipful fraternity. Divert the discourse. Don't focus on what we say and what we prove. Act like we didn't prove anything. Act like we're not bringing any level of sanity. Say that the person can't read. Do all of that to divert the discourse. All right? That's your source, page 54. Keep going. Wait, we're not finished. All right, let's see. I wanted to show this whole concept of the leprosy agenda, but can't find where Albert Pike was doing this. I wanted to find it. All right. Can't find it. There we go. This is what they do. This is the sign of leprosy. George Washington. Look what Albert Pike says. Albert Pike on Negro Masons. This is the dude who wrote their degrees. Look at what he had to say. He wrote beyond the third degree. All right. He said, I am not inclined to meddle in the matter. I took my obligations to white men, not Negroes. When I have to accept Negroes as brothers or leave Masonry, I shall leave it. I am interested to keep the ancient and accepted rite uncontaminated in our country, at least by the leprosy of Negro associations. That's deep, bro. You had a white man calling black men. All right, I can't even keep going doing this, bro. Can't keep doing it. All right, so y'all get the point. Y'all get the point. So when they say Muslims didn't contribute anything to art and all of that, look, the Islamic book, a contribution to its art and history from the 7th to the 18th century. How much is this book? How much is it? $2,500. All right, so I'm not going to, belabor that point. This is just a historical point, and so, you can make that point, and we can keep it moving. All right. Let me close on a few points, and then we can get out of here. I will take questions, though. I will take questions. All right, identity theft is a crime. All right. This is Chichen Itza, again, North America. Section we know as Mexico. All right, you see the afro. He dyed it. They used dye on the body for the paint. Use dye in the middle of their faces. You see it? You see the dye? These are the Aboriginals with the feathers. All right, you see, representing Kukulkan. Look at the hair, the Denisovan and the Neanderthal and Denisovan hair. Look at them. Look at them. Look at their hair. You got to dye, but look at it. It's an afro. Phenotype equals genotype in biochemistry. We know who you are. All right. This is the hair of the people who we generally call Mexican, whatever. This is the hair of people we call Afro-Mexican, but they're actually Aboriginal inhabitants. And we can go all day with this science to prove our points. All right. But we got to be careful because we do have things that divide us, and they're not going to come up off of those things, brothers and sisters. You can forget it. They ain't trying to hear what y'all got to say. The Aboriginals ain't got nothing to say to them. All right. All right. So let's take some questions. Is every Mason an agent, Brother Ali? That's not what I said. I didn't say every Mason is an agent. I said they have something in their protocols that allows for them to be a brotherhood. So they have a value system. And if that value system was founded by white males, it's going to be against you. Ha! Somebody said North Africa is Caucasian. All right. So this is why you need education. I gave a pre-Sahara rendition, pre-Sahara epigraphy, when the Sahara was grassland. There were no sub-Saharan Africans at the time. There were none because there was no desert. You see how people don't listen in class? But then they come on and they don't even ask the question. They just made a silly statement. All right. Somebody said, why didn't the messenger teach what you teach? The messenger taught you this, but now this is 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. You got first grade. And he did teach what I taught. The first person to call us Aboriginals was the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Why don't we know that? Where do you think the 25,000 year calendar came from? Go find the civilization that has a 25,000 year calendar. It's not in Arabia. Is the 25,000 year calendar Arabia? No. Where is it? It's right here in Mexico. The messenger sent a part of his family to Mexico. All right, so y'all got to grow up. Just because somebody, and then if we bring something new, we're supposed to bring something new. He told us to do that. The Africans are Aboriginals, the ones who are melanin dominant people. Muhammad converted Arabs to Moors. I don't know what that means. All right, y'all be wilding in this chat. Is the white related to the rhesus, or is it a non-fact? Meaning related to the rhesus monkey? No, they're related to chimpanzees and Neanderthals. I am a brother from Oakland, but also a third generation Cherokee on the doll. Should I register with the tribe? That's up to you. That's up to you. Hit them upside the head again. Right. The earth is our homeland. Yeah. In fact, African, there's no, first of all, these terms are terms that they're misnomers. They're Aboriginals. And they have clans. Then they have a nationality. Because, listen, they're way ahead of you. They're way ahead of you. No, Muhammad did not start in Mecca. The word Muhammad is not from that area. He did not start in Mecca. And Mecca is not mentioned in the Quran. I had a whole discussion with Garfield on that. And then later somebody tried to say, oh yeah, in Surah 48, we have Makata. Stop playing with me. We know where that term comes from. I showed you the glyphs in Jordan where that term comes from. And Becca is not Mecca. Our oldest lineal tribe is the Shi, XI, when you transliterate it in the Western Hemisphere. Somebody said, is Islam indigenous to America? The only Islam that's indigenous to America is Prophet Noble Drew Ali's teaching and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Besides that, everything else comes from the East. All right. We talked about Chief Tuscaloosa last week. What started your journey towards discovering your Aboriginal roots? Once I got the Supreme Wisdom lessons and I got the question, who is the original man? That was the initiation of my search. I wanted to know why was that conversation had like that in the 1930s and why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us that material. And so that started my search. Tuscaloosa's tribe, okay, let me break something down to you because I can see this is ignorance, all right? His tribe was listed as Ali Bamu, where you get the word Alabama from. That's what DeSoto and others listed his tribe as. When you look at the early maps, that's what they had it as, Ali Bamu, Tuscaloosa's tribe. But there's all kinds of tribes, Catawba, all right? Yamasee. You could go, it's hundreds of them. Ask yourself a question. Where are they now? Where are all these tribes? Just we can use South Carolina and Georgia for one instance. Where are all these tribes? They got colonized. They broke the tribes up. All of a sudden, you go from tribes to Negroes who were slaves. That shows you the Negroes were in the tribes. That's simple. All these tribes did not disappear. Nobody died. You know, I've heard the conversation, oh, they brought old world diseases to the new world, and that's what killed off the population. And I'm saying to myself, all right, the level of ignorance is so high. Didn't know old world diseases kill off anybody. First of all, it shows you know nothing about the humoral immune system of original people. Nothing. And so I'm gonna leave you in your ignorance on that one. Didn't know Aboriginals all get killed off. They all got their names changed and they got enslaved. If you want to be a part of ARNA, go to governmentreparations.org and watch our introductory video. Moors is an Eastern term. It is not a term for Aboriginals here. The Aboriginals here did not call themselves Moors. Yes, melanin is your immune system. Please answer my question. How do you verifiably prove divine revelation from an angel to mankind? If you cannot do this, then why accept religious dogma? Whoever you asked that question, you didn't watch the first part of this lecture. Go back and watch it. And you're using terms that are spooky. Angels are people. Angels are people. Angels are human beings. If you want to speak from an Islamic sense, angels are human beings. There's no spooky angels with, woo. In Revelation, the various terms that you would use for that which is revealed, all right, depending on which one you're using, all right. I'll give it to you like this. In the Quran, Muhammad is accused by his enemies of having stories of the ancients. Stories of the ancients. These are nothing but tales and stories from the ancients. But just ask yourself a question. If Muhammad was an Arab, which he was not, the Arabs are not an ancient people. And so whose stories are those? You have to go to the Aboriginals in that area to find out whose stories those are. All right. And they tell you that angels are men, and then that you confusing yourself, basically. Angels are men. Rijal, angels are men. They're men. Period. All right. Allah is not mother. I don't know what that means. There must be some Great Seal people in here. All right. What you have to say about the term Moorish American, as in Drew Ali's context? I have nothing to say about it. Moorish Americans are a religious group. Prophet Noble Drew Ali is a prophet, to his constituents that started a religious group. When he said nationality, he did not mean it in the sense that we use it. He was basically saying you are a citizen of the USA if you do not call yourself Negro, Black, and Colored. And you come back into the constitutional fold of government. And then you practice your religious ideology, which is your salvation. And he started a religious entity. We're not dealing with that. Prophet Muhammad was not Turkish. He was not a white Arab Muslim. Would y'all like me to blast some of these Arabs in here real quick? I wouldn't mind doing that for you real quick. Let me go ahead. We always get them in here, and they always come in trying to teach us about African history or Aboriginal aspects of African history. And what we're saying is we don't just study the Aboriginal history in the Americas, we study it everywhere. So let me show you. If here's $1,000 bet. My bet to you is I can prove that Muhammad was not an Arab. My request from you is after you get it proven to you, you never repeat it again. Don't repeat that bullshit again. Don't repeat it. I'm about to prove it to you right now. Just because. All right. Y'all know nothing about Muhammad. First of all, the name Hamid, all right, is Gutoro, is East African. All right. Hamid. All right. The H is Gutoro. Let me show you. The H is Gutoro. And what name do we have? That's Kemet. Kemet. All right. Kemet means the soil. the land. That's what they named this two rich, fertile sides of the Nile, Kemet. All right? Gutoro. And so when we have that name, we have it in Ge'ez, we have it in Nabatean, we have it in we have it in Medu Neter, that name. And so when you know that the Islamic Genesis was in the Thebaid in Egypt, not in Arabia, then you will recognize why they went and set the prime meridian back right, where they got all these texts from, and why they wrote on papyri. The first Qurans were written on papyri, right? And so let's go to it so I can kill this argument again. All right. The Arabs were the enemies of the constituent bodies of people who made up the original Islamic community. Enemies. I repeat, enemies. Not friends, enemies. All right, let me put that down. No, I won't do that. All right, so let me help you with this real quick. And then you can stop saying this and then y'all can go ahead. Y'all can go ahead. All right, here we go. Surah 9, verse 97 through 99. Al-Arab. When most people translate this word right here, all right, this is it right here. Alif, all right, Lam, Alif, Ain, Ra, Alif, Ba. This word right here is Al-Arab. All right. Al-Arab, Ashadu, Kufarun. All right. The Arabs are the strongest in disbelief and hypocrisy and most disposed to not truly be aware of the laws of what Allah has revealed to his Rasul. All right. His Rasul is right here. Ra. All right. Rasul. Right. Rasulihi. All right. There you go right here. And so his messenger is Muhammad. Muhammad was an enemy to these Arabs. Period. He was not an Arab. All right. Do I need to say anything else? And what was the name of the groups that he was around? All right. Let's go do it. Let's go through it. I don't even know if I can make this smaller. Let's make it smaller so I can see this. And those around you of the hypocrite Arabs. Those around you of the hypocrite Arabs. All right. Oops, my bad. All right. There you go right here. Arabs. Munafiqun. Munafiqun. All right. You're hypocrites. So don't tell me nothing about no Arabs. All right. The early Umayyad. All right. Talked about these Arabs. And what did it say? This concerns the Rijaz of the Arabs. By Allah, if I find anyone who will read it, I will kill him and even rub his misinterpreted writings, his mushaf, with the side of pork. All right, so y'all don't even know who Muhammad was. You have no idea about the history of Islam whatsoever. All of your writings are for Abbasids who were interlopers who came in and tried to destroy the African history and the Aboriginal history of Islam. Cut it out. All right. So whoever that Arab was in the group, please don't come try to teach us anything about history. You don't know. All right. All right. So cut that out, bro. All right. Somebody asked, why is most ancient languages written from right to left? All right. Because they deal with the way that we thought, from right hemispheric brain activity to the left hemisphere. Creativity to reason. All right. There's no language called Arabic. Please stop lying. The term Arabian and Mubin deal with the vocalization and the clarity of the writing, the comprehension. It has nothing to do with people. A language being named after a group of people named called Arabs. There is no Arabic. Yo, I'm not saying, I don't know how y'all turned this into an Islamic conversation, because I didn't come here to talk about Islam, all right, at all. But for the sake of history, yes, a man gave revelation to another man. How are you going to get revelation? Spooky, sit down and twiddle your fingers? Like, a man came and gave another man teachings. That's the only way you can learn something, is from a man or a woman, or watching nature and meditating, or animals, or, how are you going to learn? I never said the Aboriginal people here practice Islam. People ask me questions about Islam. And by the way, most of you don't know what the Aboriginal people here practice at all. So stop acting like you know what they practice. You don't know. If you knew what Aboriginal peoples here from the master cultures practice, we would see you. It's too powerful for you not to be seen. And so don't act like you know what it was. And you will be able to do things that would be evident that you know what they practice. Don't act like you know. And I'm not trying to be, prideful or anything, but a lot of times people come and they make, this is just this. See, I'm not saying this to put anybody down. I'm saying you are always going to be talking to somebody. You're going to be talking to your husband. You're going to be talking to your wife. You're going to be talking to your children. Children going to be talking to parents. They're going to be talking to grandparents. There's an art and a science to communications. Don't act like you know something that you don't know. It is a sign of the most insecure type of psychology. There's a million things that I don't know. My knowledge is a drop of water in an ocean. But my drop, I know my drop. I'm not going to front and act like I know something that I don't know. When I know something, I'll share it with certainty. When I don't know something, I'm not going to act like I know something. Oh, our ancestors didn't practice Islam. But what did they practice? If I started naming out divination terms to you, would you know? Bolok, Oshlahun, Lahun, Bolon, Ho, Washak. All right? Osh. Like, if I start things that you should know what they mean. You should know how they impart on psychology. You should know the power in them. You should know the day. You should know it from the cap. Don't act like you know and you don't know. Somebody said, no one knows what spiritual systems we practice in North America. Great. That's pure ignorance. The NOI science taught from Master Farah Muhammad to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad from mouth to ear is the beginning phases of you beginning to understand Aboriginal science. That's why a big part of it was calendars. Because without understanding astronomy, you cannot understand cultural, spiritual practices. It's going to be fake. We have 1,000 years of fake gods, fake ancestors, misinterpretations, and people just believing in things. And Europeans were not the first to teach mystery gods. They weren't the first. Our people took advantage of their own people in teaching some of these systems. And it's only through you learning Aboriginal science that you're going to actually get out of that. The messenger, the first person to call us Aboriginals, started that particular process. There is something new under the sun. It's called another sun. Yeah. You know what? It's interesting. I don't come on YouTube a whole lot, but YouTube is really reflective of the psychosis of people in our communities. It's alarming. It is alarming. I don't care what they attack. I'm not interested in I don't have to protect Master Farah Muhammad. His activity protects itself, and the people who adhere to what he put out protects it. It's all kind of weirdos on social media, and they just talk about anybody any kind of crazy way in any way that they want to. Nothing we can do about that. If you want to know about the second sun, get my book Star Prophecy, and then use the coordinates to go onto a telescope. You can go to a planetarium in your local area and put it on infrared, and you can see that second sun. You can see it. All of the major astronomers know about it. I send them my books. The news channels know about it. The government has been known about it. NASA knows about it. JPL knows about it. They all know about it. And our ancestors here, the Shi, wrote about it. They wrote about it. They wrote about its manifestation. When it would reappear. That's what the whole 2012 thing was about. It happened and people are laughing at 2012. What do you want to get to about the bottom of this more Negro question? What do you want to get to the bottom? Let me know. Maybe I can help you. Somebody said, why did we let a foreigner teach us? Let's ask a better question. If a foreigner comes and tells you that you are the original people of the planet, you're the original man and you're the original woman, after you have been broken away from that knowledge, after that, you've broken completely away. You enslave, you go through genocide, you go through lynchings, you go through reconstruction, and some mysterious person comes to you and say, you're not any of these things these people are saying. You're the original people. And over time now, almost 100 years ago that was, all right, 90, 80 years or whatever, you come to find out that it's true. Why would you have malice towards someone who offered you help? This is a sign of a very sick person. If you were thirsty and you had nothing to eat or drink, and you don't like, I don't know, who you don't like. It could be a Chinese man. and that Chinese man came to you and said, I have food for you. Here, eat and drink. Are you now going to say, I don't like Asians, so I'm not going to take this water even though I'm starving in this desert? See, this is how stupid we have become. How silly we have become as a people. Even the people who try to help us, we look at them and snuff our nose up. That is the arrogance from your enemy that you have been given. Because that is exactly how they think. As a matter of fact, they don't even think like that no more. All right. So y'all gotta, I mean, you don't have to do anything. You can do whatever you want to do. Do DNA tests results show a timeline for admixtures from oldest to newest? If so, how do you read it? No, they do not. If you want to get a chronology of admixture, most likely, well, I mean, you can do that. Okay, admixture. Let's go there first. What is admixture? Because we use these terms and sometimes I don't think we know what they mean. All right. Admixture means a population. Let me give you what they say admixture is, and then give you what you should be learning about it. Admixture, from their standpoint, is a mixture of populations of people that are not in the same vicinity, who some kind of way have some type of migration point where they meet, and then those genes that have not been crossing cross. So an admixture point would be Homo sapien sapien with Homo sapien neanderthalis. That would be considered admixture, right? Okay, so in our system, admixture is someone who has a healthy biochemistry and genetics mixing with someone who has malignant chromatin and chromosomes and DNA and genes. Malignant mutation. All right. And so now the party that had the healthy biochemistry and genes who admixed with the malignant mutant genetics, they now produce a weaker offspring. That's simple. So now, can you chart when that happened? Yes, you can chart when that happened. It depends on what you're using to chart it. There's a lot of factors that come into determining when those things happen. Look at how silly our people are. Somebody just said we need to get away from religious ideology. Okay, so I'll give you an example, and this is no slight on these brothers. Sanetta's not religious. Seti's not religious. Pharaoh's not religious. None of those people are religious. But those three absolutely do not get along. So is religion dividing Seti, Sanetta, and Pharaoh? Ankh don't get along with Ankh's Amun-Ra squad. Don't get along with Ishmael Bey's Amun-Ra squad. That's Moorish. Is religion dividing them? Team Osiris with I think Kansu and now I get all these names, brother. Anyway, Team Osiris don't get along with Amun-Ra squad. Neither one of them are religious. Is religion dividing them? See, we don't even think before we talk. Is Donald Trump divided against Michael Cohen? No, because they're all under the same constitution. And when they have a difference, they use courts, arbitration, or whatever. And you can watch whatever you want to watch on CNN, but when it's time to go to war, they're all ranking up because they have something that's a common value system. The problem with black men, Aboriginal men, indigenous men, Pan-African men, whoever you are, y'all don't want a value system because y'all don't want to be held to no goddamn standard. And any man that don't want to be held to a standard cannot be trusted. Any man who cannot be, they're nothing. What are you? I'm nothing. I'm nothing. I'm democratic. Can't trust that kind of nigga. Can't trust him. All right. They have Neanderthal ancestors or Denisovan ancestors. Even if you disagree with Mr. Farrakhan, calling him a Mason is inaccurate unless you can show he's a Mason. And I'm not talking about these little pictures that Afrocentrics be making up saying he throwing up signs. Bro, y'all crazy. This is why I don't come on YouTube. Hey, it's all good. Let him talk. I don't have no problem with it. It doesn't distract me. I'm doing Q&A right now. All right. Dan Calloway stated that genealogy DNA tests are conjectures and should be treated as a form of entertainment. They are comparing recent living people to recent living people. Not in all cases. In some cases, they're comparing archaeogenetics to older archaeogenetics. So it might be some bones in Africa they're comparing to bones in Eurasia, or bones in Eurasia to modern people, or bones in Africa to modern people, or bones in, so there are variations. The fact of whether you can trust it or not is the issue. And so how can someone heal sciatica? This is not a health lecture, but it depends on what's causing it. It could be obesity. It could be a number of factors. It could be deterioration of myelin sheaths because of improper lipids. All right, adipose tissue, fat, what you call fat. All right, it could be a number of things that's causing that sciatica. I could definitely say you probably had a really, really poor diet and you need a consultation. You know what's sad about YouTube? There's a lot of information out there, but there's so much misinformation, especially in the Black community. And when I see people repeating it, it really, really shows me the level of intelligence that has left our communities. I mean, left. Did somebody just ask me the origins of last names, European last names? Y'all better stop playing with me. They come from Europeans. Even though we had some so-called Black Europeans who came here. I'm not distracted. I'm just doing Q&A. I don't have nothing else to say. I already taught everything I need to teach tonight. All right. Yo. All right, so when it comes to TSA, we can travel with our tribal IDs inside domestically on airplanes, but when we leave the country, we have to use passports. All right, and when we fill out the DS-10 form, the DS-72 form for passports, there's a way that we fill them out that is specific for us, and that's pretty much it. ARNA doesn't have a military team that can extract you from, Kenya or some other place. All right, we don't have an embassy in Kenya, so you would still use your passport. But what we can do is we can ensure you that you don't have to take large numbers of vaccinations when you're going to foreign countries. You can use the vaccination exemptions and communicate to the embassy before you leave. And once you get that authenticated, you can get past with no problem. If you want best foods for athlete to gain muscle, get my book, Indigenous Food Science, off of AboriginalMedicalAssociation.com. No, joining our nation will not affect your prior contracts where you owe money, like Social Security or something of that nature. If you owe money because you invested in Social Security, you can still get it. It does not stop you from getting that. Yeah, y'all want me to kick some people out? I don't have a problem kicking some people out. Let's do that. Bye. Yep. Bye. I just kicked some people out. Who else want to get kicked out? That's my first time actually doing that. That's kind of fun. Ha! He says I created a tribe. Ha! How did I do that? We created a plebiscite. We didn't create the tribe. You can't create a new people. We are all descended from some people. Can't create a new people. But if you want to form a plebiscite, I have no problem teaching you. We have a whole training module on how to create a plebiscite, and we can do that for your community. Who is running from the motherland? Nobody's running from the motherland. I just told you, we are Aboriginals and Africans are Aboriginals. I just don't agree with the out of Africa theory. It's fake. It's erroneous. There was a bottleneck in Africa, but there was no out of Africa. Like the latest evolutionary biologists have already debunked the out of Africa theory. Y'all want me to show y'all? How many times I gotta do this? All right. Y'all are y'all late. Y'all late in the game. All right, so let me help y'all out since y'all late in the game. Y'all late in the gang. Y'all late in the game and the gang. All right, let's debunk this out of Africa theory again. All right, they started debunking the out of Africa theory back in 2010, 11, 12. All the reports started coming out. I don't agree with any of these theories because I know where human beings come from, and they didn't come from. They didn't come from where these people are saying they came from. All right, so let's debunk this real quick. All you believers, all you non-believers, maybe you'll become believers. Let's go down to 200%. All right, so look. This is the new theory right here. All right. A simplified view of Homo sapiens sapien migrations. They're saying that they have an out of Asia hypothesis. All right. And you see, these are the branches that went into Africa. These are the branches that went into Europe. These are the branches that went into high parts of Asia. These are the branches that went into Australia and Oceania. The shaded area signifies an undefined Asian Eurasian area from which Homo sapiens sapien dispersed. Why are they doing this now? Because they knew that in their old model, Neanderthals could not have developed in Africa. It's impossible. So they had to try to figure out a way to make this work, so they put it in Asia. And in doing so, now they can say, sure, a hairy, pale hominin became the progenitor of all other peoples, which means, you know, this pale, hairy hominin is the original man. And then by going into Africa, people went through mutations. That's what they're trying to say. All right, they couldn't keep it, and they had no plan on keeping it. Y'all were just too silly. Y'all didn't recognize what they were doing. The red track shows the potential routes of the Khoisan, Mobutu, and Yoruba outside of the Homo sapien Neanderthalis range. So they're saying these people don't have Neanderthal genes because they're out of the range. All right. All right. Khoisan and Mbuti may have diverged before their migration into Africa. The arrow-headed lines between Mbuti and Yoruba mark potential genetic exchange right here in Arabia. All right. The green track represents the common Asian origin of indigenous Australians, Papuans, New Guineans, and the Andames. Right here. The track also, let's see. The track marks also Homo sapien Neanderthalis admixture. All right. The blue track marks Homo sapien Neanderthalis input in European and Asian populations. Here. Altai shows the location of the genetic contribution. So you have this one, and then you have another one that always show. But when you go back up now, all these old routes that they used to have, this is an old one right here. This now is in reverse now. These patterns are conflicting. They change, they've been changing this every year. So now these groups now are coming from Asia into this area. Now the problem with this is they're not explaining a lot, and they're wrong, but they're not explaining what will cause mass migrations. And until you get into cataclysm science and other things, none of this will make sense. All right? None of it will make sense. This is the study that the Russians published. All right. This is the study that they published, showing that the A groups and the B groups are distinct and that they don't come from inside of Africa, and the F through the rest of the groups, all right, where they originated from, which haplogroups gave birth to them, etc. So I have this whole published study right here, but there's several different studies that show that are the latest based on genomic information that they use to debunk the out of Africa theory. So give it up. Even with the old out of Africa theory, they were saying that The African melanin dominant skin was a mutation from cancer, which is which is anatomically and biologically impossible, son. Like, I don't even know why y'all listen to these people at this point. Y'all can listen to them though. Y'all have the right to do what y'all want to do. If y'all want to know where human beings come from, y'all gonna have to listen to us, because the Aboriginals already told you. He been kicked out. I go by indigenous records because they're more accurate. In fact, the indigenous records talk about the these hominids only a few thousand years ago, so they're not old. So this whole concept of Neanderthals and Denisovans, it was talked about in indigenous records. So my presumption is that indigenous records are more accurate when it comes to the origins of human beings. Oh, I didn't put them out. Let me put them out permanently. The precession of the equinox, it starts with the spring equinox, the vernal equinox, which is measured via the celestial meridian, the celestial prime meridian, which occurs around mid-March 20th or 21st. And I think it's about 12 degrees in the constellation Pisces. But it's the first polarity, the commencement of the 30-degree polarity. Come on, Cam. People out. Put them out. All right. We have elements that are soil in us, but we don't come from soil. All right. The reason why ancient scriptures talk about human beings coming from soil is because the soil quality determines the quality of the plants. And so that's not a past event. That's a recurring issue, that the quality and state of the soil will determine the quality and state of the physical makeup of the people. That is a present perfect tense reality. That's what it means by making humans from soil. That is an agricultural statement. That has nothing to do with spooky past statements. We didn't come from the ground. We are maintained by the ground. My thoughts on the mystic arts. Which ones? What gives you the strength to keep fighting? Probably because I'm not fighting. It is a violation of human rights for a government to make it illegal to bear arms. The government has not made it illegal to bear arms. You can open carry. It's when you want to conceal carry. They make you get a permit. All right. You build your will by practice. That's it. That's all I can say. You build your will by practice. If I incorporate my business as an ARNA Corp, will I still have to pay U.S. taxes? Not if you don't want to. Unless you are electing to pay taxes, you won't be or have a business master file that requires you to. You speak blasphemy, Ali, and practice divination. So what does that mean? Divination is practiced in the Quran. Muhammad practiced divination. Every prophet of Allah practiced divination. You don't know what divination is. You one of those, oh, it's Aboriginal nature worshiping devil people, man. Listen, please keep these Arabs out of my chat. I'm just going to delete them. Yes, there are Aboriginals who are willing to work with us, and they're doing it. We're literally rewriting the Constitution for a group of people in the Congo to protect their lands. I've been working on that for 3 years. Reggie said Prophet Muhammad is mixed with Neanderthal. What does he mean? I guess he's trying to say if he's from Arabia, that the particular people in that particular area had Neanderthal admixture. But that's because Reggie don't know nothing about Prophet Muhammad. All my consultation fees are at the website. If it's health, go to Aboriginal Medical Association. My bad. I have learned not to trust certain people's research. That's it. So, all right. It depends on if you have the legal awareness to create an Aboriginal Republic. That's what we offer people. No, you don't need to have a Social Security removed in order to stop being taxed. Is there a volume 1 for the lost pages? Which lost pages? Lost pages of Islam? No. We took the information from volume 1 and included it in volume 2. Talk about protein. What about protein? Oh, yeah. Well, if you start in a new 25,000 year cycle, you start in the constellation Virgo. All right. I don't know who Randall Carson is. I never heard of Randall Carson and um, his perception on cataclysms. Never heard of him. I don't follow Chief Nanya Shabu L at all. No, what we see on the reservations is not our culture. If you went through us to start a music production company and it's an LLC, you can email me at here. If something is wrong, then we can fix it. LLCs usually need a transmittal form done, and it needs to be communicated to the Secretary of State because it's an entity that sometimes requires insurances and other things. So maybe you're missing that or something. But you can email me there where I just put the email out, and we'll help you fix that. Out of Africa is not true for the tribe of Shabazz. Tribe of Shabazz did not originate in Africa. According to the messenger, he said that they went into Africa approximately 50,000 years ago. That's what he said. He also said that a group of people from the area of Asia that we now call India were sent here 16,000 years ago. And there were no red people then, so who were they? The red man is a product of mixing within a 6,000 year period. So there's a lot of things you just have to really, really, really look at the teachings from a mature perspective because they were given in baby language for people who knew nothing. And so now you have to review them when you mature in a different light. And a lot of us are uncomfortable at doing those particular things. And so we're going to stay wherever we are. And that's fine too if they're happy. Kashada She, I remember doing your EIN myself. So I'm not sure why you didn't receive it. But if you email me at amarushiali@gmail.com, we'll make sure that we fix that. I've already done videos on farming, but I'm using the crowdfunding to attempt to purchase the land. And once I do that, I'm going to be teaching youth groups how to farm. And anybody who takes the level 3 course can learn also. We have a level 3 course where we teach that. Being a fruitarian in this part of the planet is not practical. It makes no sense. You're not in the proper weather to be a fruitarian. And because of the present state of the earth, all right, fruit should be a lot of your diet. You can eat a lot of fruits, but you need other things. All right, you need vegetation, you need soups, you need certain water-soluble starches like fonio and other things so that you won't atrophy. Our Earth has changed a lot. We have more nitric oxide, NO1, NO2 in the atmosphere, some from environmental toxicity, some from nitrogen fixators, and others. So we have to curb our diet to our current circumstances. And in the future, the planet will be different. It'll be warmer all over the planet. And there'll be a different way to deal with those particular things. First of all, I will address this very directly. I don't know that person personally, but I was attacked by this person online. They're going by the name Chief Nanya Shabu El. Him and his wife just came on Facebook, like on a thread, just attacking me. I don't know them. So, if somebody start acting crazy, I just leave them alone. So it's not that I'm avoiding talking about him. I don't know him. The only thing I know is he said that he put a lien on the White House and he owns the White House now. So when you start talking like that, I think that you're absolutely insane. And so I'm not going to give you any more of my attention. So I'm not personally avoiding Chief Nanya Shabu El. I think from the statements that I have heard that he needs to be put in a psych ward. And I'm pretty sure y'all gonna send this back to him, so that's fine. We have an indigenous psych ward. They'll sit you right down in the living room and go through all your problems in life and try to figure out what you mean by you put a lien on the White House. No, excuse me. That's not the fact that you put a lien on the White House. So maybe you want to do that. Okay. It's the fact that you are saying you are trying to enforce the lien for some particular purpose. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but the way that I saw and witnessed the documents and mixing with sovereign citizen and UCC, like it's just it's like a smorgasbord of crazy Moorish indigenous sovereign citizen mashup. It's crazy. If you want to start the process of joining ARNA, go to our website, governmentreparations.org, and watch the introduction video. And the following instructions on that page. What do y'all do to child molesters in ARNA? We don't have any. You don't know if Chief Nanya El got deported to Canada by the feds unless he showed documentation for that. And why would he get deported to a place that he's never been at? People always have like fancy stories about what happened to them that appeal to people. But I'm not going to just. I didn't come here to talk about him. Somebody said this is a long Q&A. Damn. Why are you still here if you have a problem with the Q&A being this long? You could have been went to bed, done something else. Like, some of y'all have some serious psychological issues. How are you upset that the Q&A is long, but you're still here? Why don't you just leave? If you tried to call me, the best method is, if I didn't answer your call, send me a text message so I'll know who you are, because I usually don't answer calls from people who I don't know. You can text me and text me the nature of, you know, what your business is, and then I'll save the number and call you back. Are you serious? You're concerned about Isis? Isis is a ancient goddess. You got the daughters of Isis. You got Masonic fraternities that use the term Isis. Like, why are y'all so spooked out and scary? And did I share an email just now that said something about ISIS on it? Like, bruh, I'm not a member of whatever the real name of that thing is, which is not even ISIS. Like, there's no terrorist organization here. Whew. Who raised y'all? Why y'all so scary? All right, so I got to get up in the morning and do some traveling. So I'm going to get out of here. Thank you for the night. Hopefully you learned something. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And we will be back to talk to you soon from Aboriginal Global Media. Peace.